Hey everyone, today I'm going to be showing you 5 ways to make your Forbidden Rite totem character much tankier than the version of the build I put out the other day. For me, I'm a softcore player through and through. Dying 500 times in the first week of the league is a pretty good indication that I'm having a lot of fun. However, I understand how a lot of you guys don't feel the same way, so I'm going to show you exactly how durable we can get. And after I show you this little map clear, I'll show you exactly how we're accomplishing what we're doing here. So as you can see, this map is a tier 16. We have some pretty gnarly crit mods. We have Beyond. We have a bunch of Sextants. We have Redeemer mods in here as well. I accidentally started clearing the map before remembering I needed to make the video. And but yeah, I'll just show you what we're in for. I'll try and tank some mobs for you and take some damage, so you can kind of see we're not exactly very squishy. Totally hardcore viable. We'll take risks that you shouldn't even be taking, and you can see for yourself. I'll work my way towards boss so that you can sort of see that, we still have some pretty nice boss DPS. There's the boss over here. Yep. Okay. So now, I'll show you exactly how we accomplish that. First things first, we're going to talk about the Shaper Shield and what it does for us. Most other builds fit in a shield at the cost of a lot of DPS. We are an exception. So with Shaper Shields, you can get a mod called +1 number of summon totems, and what that does is it basically is giving you 25% more damage right off the rip, providing you're not using multiple totem support in your Soul Mantle. So as you can see here, I can now summon a 5th totem, which is 25% more damage, since 5 is 25% more than 4. This means that as long as you aren't investing, several exalts into your second wand, this might actually be a DPS upgrade over having a second wand. At the very least, you're not losing very much DPS at all for having the shield. Now, the shield is going to give you a base amount of block, but it's also going to give you access to shield charge with Fortify. And so the easiest way to set this up is going faster attacks, shield charge, and Fortify in a 3-link. And then as you can see, we can dash around here. This is a pretty big increase to our mobility since shield dash doesn't have any kind of cooldown. And when you hit mobs, you're going to get Fortify for, I think it's about 5 seconds or so. And Fortify gives you 20% damage reduction, pretty much from all sources. It's one of the strongest defensive layers in the entire game, and it's very important to fit this into your build if you can, without giving very much up. Now you can also get other really good mods on the shield. Now this one that I'm running here is an 89 max life shield. It's got tier 1 spell block, tier 1 regular block, and tier 3 lightning resistance, which makes it easier to fit Coward's Legacy and other things into my build. This is a really powerful shield, and this one's worth several exalts, though very fortunately, since not a lot of people are aware of this, I managed to snag this one for 30C. Don't expect to be able to do the same, but you can craft your own shield, and you can get a pretty decent roll of a few of these things depending on what's important to you. Getting shields with life on block, or energy shield on block, or even mana on block would not be too bad of an idea, although we're not going to get incredible value out of that unless we're running glancing blows, which greatly reduces the mitigation value of running block anyway, so it's just a nice mod to have, but don't go out of your way to get it, and don't spend a lot of money if you have to in order to get it. Next up is spell block. My character avoids damage from about a third of all the spells that it gets hit with, and part of that is due to the Shaper Shield. We're running the tier 1 spell block mod, which is giving me 11% spell block chance. However, that's only a part of how we're doing this. The other 20% comes from the tree. For an investment of 6 points, you can get Arcane Guarding and Mystic Bulwark, and with this particular paving, we're getting 20% spell block. This is really high value, and it adds up to be quite meaningful. When you're fighting like endgame bosses such as Cirrus, you're just avoiding 1/3 of all the big spell damage hits that they're sending your way, and this is really cool when you also have Fortify and you also have, like 8k EHP. It's very hard to die in these situations without making a lot of mistakes. That doesn't mean you're not going to make those mistakes, but it does mean that there are a lot of situations where you're going to survive where otherwise you wouldn't. For the amount of damage mitigation we're getting here, this is definitely worth the 6 points on the tree. And you're only giving up, I'd say, for my character, I lost about 15% of my damage in order to respec these points over here. Next up is Ailment Immunity, and we can only partially achieve this if you're still running the budget version of the build. However, most of everything I'm going to show you in this section is accomplishable regardless of your budget. So, first off, we're going to talk about our Ignite mitigation. So, by running 5% here, 30% here, and then 15% here, we have 50% reduced duration of ignites. We get another 50% from Soul of Rabareth for 100% reduced ignite duration, meaning that every ignite that's applied to us is instantly removed. It doesn't have time to do any damage to us whatsoever. Now, if you are playing the budget version, you're going to still want to run Soul of Yugal because you need the 20% reduced effective curses, and that just means you're going to get 50% ignite mitigation. This is still strong, but it doesn't really affect your ability to become immune to the other ailments, and we're going to move on to that, and I'll show you how we accomplish that. So as for chill, we're getting 5% reduced effective chill here, 30% here, and another 15% here, and then we're getting 50% reduced effective chill from having upgraded Soul of the Brine King. Now to upgrade this, you're going to put a Divine Vessel into the map device when you run a Reef map. After you kill the boss, you can take the Divine Vessel out, talk to Sin, and it's pretty much the same for Soul of Rabareth where you're killing the boss of Summit, I believe. So this is giving us Ignite and Chill immunity, however, there are other ailments. Now, admittedly, we don't really do anything to mitigate shock here. You can if you want to. You're getting about 20% passively here. If you want to spend the extra node here to get to 50% shock mitigation, you can. I personally don't really care much for it, but it's totally up to you. You know, for me, spending 4 points for this stuff is, you know, starting to dip into, you know, our damage a little too much for what I'm comfortable with, but, you know, this is totally a personal choice. Now, as for freeze, poison, and bleed, we have a few little tricks we can do with flasks. So first one I'm going to talk about is poison immunity, and I think the best way to do this is with a diamond flask. So by rolling the instilling orbs onto your diamond flask, you can make it trigger only when you become poisoned, and then you can also roll your diamond flask to give you immunity to poison if used while poisoned. Now what that means is every time you're poisoned, it's going to use your diamond flask and immediately remove that poison. Now you might be thinking, well, this isn't going to be up all the time, etc., but here's the way I see it. You don't really need a lot of extra damage while you're clearing maps. You clear maps very easily, things die pretty much with one hit out of your Forbidden Rite totems, so instead, I basically never touch this flask. This means that the flask is always available for when I do get poisoned, and then when I get to a boss, I typically have, you know, both sets of uses of this diamond flask, and I can pop it back to back for a total of 8 seconds of, you know, diamond flask 100% increased global crit chance. I'm not going to need it for bosses, so it's going to be kind of up for that purpose and then be used for reducing or mitigating poison damage while in my map. And I feel like this is a really nice way to get basically 2 flasks for the value of 1. You're getting your poison immunity and then you're still getting your boss damage. Now, next up is freeze immunity. We're doing a very similar trick with this. Now, you can run this as a jade flask or a quartz flask. I do believe a quartz flask would be ideal. I just didn't have one on me, and I wasn't too concerned given the way they've absolutely destroyed quartz flasks. They nerfed it by, I think, 60% off the top of my head. Quartz flasks are way weaker than what they used to be, but, you know, that's totally okay. I think it's still better than the jade flask because I nerfed that too. And so what happens here is every time you become frozen, it quickly removes the freeze and you're good to go. This does also provide chill immunity, but we're running chill immunity from here and here, so you don't have to worry about this. Last up is our bleed and corrupted blood immunity, and we just remove that with the Seething Life Flask the way we do and have been doing for most other builds for years now. So these next 2 tricks are going to require a higher investment version of the build. You basically need to be running Coward's Legacy at this point in order to benefit from them. However, you can get away with doing them before you hit the Coward's Legacy if you really want. It just means that you're going to be giving up a bit more damage than what you're probably used to, but I think that's okay too, given how much extra defense and how much utility you're getting out of doing these tricks. So Sanctuary of Thought is this Ascendancy node over here, and it basically means we're dropping Conviction of Power. Now, if you're using the Arn's Anguish build, you really need Conviction of Power in order to have your 4 Brutal charges, which is 24% more damage. Once you switch to Coward's Legacy, you don't really need Endurance charges at all, and you don't really need the power charges, at which point you can drop this and go Sanctuary of Thought. Sanctuary of Thought is giving you a lot of extra energy shield. It's also giving you roughly 60% increased AoE, which is really good. It reduces the mana cost of skills, which is actually very significant because it means that when you're waiting for bosses to do their RP, you can just spam your totems constantly and you're never going to run out of mana, and then you get 10% less mana reservation of skills. This doesn't really matter at all since we're not going to be utilizing any mana reservation in this build. But we're mostly taking it for the, you know, the mana and the ES that you get from this node and this node. And as you can see here, my character has 1500 ES, which is kind of a lot of extra ES, right? Now, Mind Over Matter doesn't work with ES, which basically means that ES is going to sit there and the damage that you take is going to get completely removed from the energy shield before it starts dipping into your life and mana. Your mana is not going to be affected at this point, so it's just kind of an extra buffer. Think of it as kind of like a steel skin that's always active until it's depleted, at which point it only gets refilled once you stop taking damage for a little while. So this next trick also requires getting a Coward's Legacy and dropping Arn's Anguish. Arn's Anguish is converting our endurance charges into brutal charges, and that means we can't consume them and use them for Immortal Core to any particular effect. However, once that's been done, we can now run a very infamous defensive technique that I use in pretty much every character that I can squeeze it into. This really should have been nerfed a long time ago, and I have no idea how GGG continues to allow this to exist in the game, but as long as it exists, we may as well take great advantage of it, and that is using Enduring Composure in conjunction with Cast When Damage Taken or Mortal Core. So the way Mortal Core works is that it gives us a less physical damage taken and a less elemental damage taken buff for almost 2 seconds. However, it also attempts to consume endurance charges. Now when you have Conviction of Power, those endurance charges are permanent and they can't be consumed. Once we drop that, however, we can now start generating them and then consuming them with this tool. Now, the combination of these two tools basically means every time you get hit, you're going to generate 3 endurance charges over the next 3 seconds. The next time you get hit within that 10-second window while you still have those endurance charges, Immortal Core is going to consume those endurance charges. It's going to give you close to like a 60% less physical damage taken buff, and it's going to increase the duration of that buff to 2.5 seconds. It's also then going to replenish those consumed endurance charges, so that the next time you take damage after the 3-second cooldown of Immortal Core has been consumed, you could do this all over again. This is the strongest form of physical and elemental damage mitigation in the game, save for a few things that the Elementals could do. However, the Elementals has to invest an entire Ascendancy node into getting elemental damage reduction. This, on the other hand, is the best physical damage mitigation tool in the game, and it only really costs us a few gem sockets on our gear and a few points on the tree. Literally only 3 points on the tree to get this, and the way you accomplish this is by running a 2 passive increased armor cluster jewel, and then you can roll this on with alteration orbs. Well, I'm going to leave you guys with some gameplay footage to end off, as I usually do. I'm having a lot more fun than I would care to admit with this character. I didn't expect to find a shield dash character that doesn't have Quicksilver Flask fun and enjoyable to map with, but I am. So even though I wasn't initially planning on playing this build for any longer than I needed to make the video, I decided I'm just going to keep playing it for the foreseeable future. Which means that if you want to see more than what's at the end of this video, you can just come watch me on stream pretty much every day. I'm going to be playing this character pretty much with this level of investment and this type of gear. I will probably take it to higher levels at some point. I don't know if I'm interested in getting to level 100, but given what I've already done with it, this character could easily get to level 100. Probably much easier than any other character I've made before. It's actually quite ridiculous how tanky it is for the amount of damage it has at the moment without having to invest too heavily into the character. But anyway, if you found this video helpful, give me a like, comment, or a subscribe, and otherwise, you know, just flame me in the comments as some of you guys like to do anyway. And for the rest of you, I'll see you on stream tonight.
Love a good risk. This is all